Welcome to the Sisters for Prevention YouTube channel and podcast. I am your host, Judy Fitzgerald, and it is my great pleasure to bring you today's program. My very special guest today is Chris White. Chris's cancer story is so amazing and complicated that we have recorded a 3-part series to include his entire journey. Links to the other parts of these series will be posted at the end of each video. Chris White tried nearly every possible treatment option available to beat his melanoma. Yet, after 3 surgeries, multiple rounds of chemotherapy, and 3 attempts with immunotherapy, he was told to consider hospice care and get his end-of-life affairs in order. That was December 2019. Remarkably today, Chris is cancer-free, all thanks to a novel cell and gene therapy he received in a clinical trial called TILs, tumor infiltrating lymphocytes. Chris has said, there has been this belief in the world there will never be a cure for cancer, but cell and gene therapy feels like a cure. This is winning the war, not just the battle. This is the future of modern medicine. So join me in welcoming my very special guest, Chris White.
Out of the NCI is one of the guys that pioneered it, but the first melanoma patient, I believe it was diagnosed with or treated with it in 1988. And throughout the years, there's been multiple other cancers that they've been able to do this in clinical trials for solid tumors, and percent of all cancer is solid tumors. And so nobody's really heard of the one I had, but they've definitely heard of breast cancer, colon cancer, lung cancer. Mm-hmm. These are all solid tumors. They literally take that cell from a tumor, and you need 2 tumors. You have to be metastatic, one to extract and then one to monitor. And it has to be of a minimum amount size so then they can, be able to get what they need out of it. It's a second option. Like, you have to fail on a immunotherapy, a PD-1 first, or CTLA-4. And if you have a BRAF mutation, you have to have at least tried that first. But it's now approved as a second line treatment. So as soon as you try immunotherapy and it doesn't work, you can go do that. And there's a confirmatory trial going on right now. They do neoadjuvant, Keytruda, and then do TIL. They have 2 arms in it. But the whole goal is that whenever that gets approved, that would be a first line defense. But this is a one-time treatment. You might end up spending from the time that you sign your consents and do your extraction it takes about a 22-day manufacturing process for them to grow your cells into the billions and everything. And it's a very intricate process, and it's a biologic. So when they go for approval for these things, they're applying for a BLA, a biologics logistics application. But then after they do all that, they have to go through a very strict QA process. It's a new thing. And so, but from the time you do a surgery till the time your TILs are ready, that's, basically 3 to 4 weeks. It takes a week or they give you a week to do your lymphodepletion, because you have to bring your white cell count down to 0. And then whenever they infuse you with your TIL, they call that day 0. And then the process I did includes doing IL-2, which I did up to 6 doses. They're, working on things where you don't have to do all 6, or you do as many as you can. And then also some organizations where you don't even have to do IL-2 at all. After you do that, your immune system is so suppressed, they have to watch for all your levels to come back up, be released from the hospital.
Did you get any like flu-like symptoms or fever or anything like that? Because you were so immune suppressed?
So when they gave me the IL-2, it's like throwing a match on gasoline, and when it sends all your cells, your Pac-Man throughout your body, and that gives you what's called rigors. You convulsively shake. You're running a fever, but you feel freezing. It's like you're doing such an intense workout that your body's just so drained. I was, extreme thirst. But all those side effects came, from doing that while I was in the hospital. And so they were able to help me out. I did need, throughout the whole time I was there, I think a couple of some iron infusions, a couple of bags of blood, some platelets and such, and I have it all written out, but there was some side effects, but that was while I was in the hospital. I felt very blessed because I only spent a total of 12 days in the hospital, and I've known a lot of people, they spend up to 3 to 4 weeks, but after you do your day 0 and you do the IL-2, to get your levels to where they need to be so they can
Let's
release
explain
your.
IL-2. Let's explain IL-2.
Okay. IL-2 stands for interleukin. Um, it's commercially now known as proleukin. It's a part of the process that takes. I basically I just call it the activator for simple terms, and so once you get all your new cells, it's like you're infused with them, but it's like say you drop off a bunch of kids at the mall, but they don't know where to go or what to do, so they're just standing there, but you give them some money and all of a sudden they're running around the mall, like and it gets them moving. So basically, yeah, you get all your tills infused, but then the IL-2, it kind of it sparks them to start moving around. They need an activator, and so that essentially is what that does is it gets them to start moving around, and it's like cranking the engine without turning the key or anything like that. I mean, the engine just doesn't start and start moving, but that's what it does. And it's I'm at for a lack of like all the technical knowledge of it, but there's many IL different proteins. There's IL-8, IL-15, it goes into all these different numbers, but IL-2 itself, has been given to melanoma patients, in prior years, is just here, take some IL-2 and hopefully that'll, jumpstart your existing T cells to get them to start moving around. But it's an intense drug. It's a very intense drug.
So did you know that it worked? Like when did you know anytime during this process that?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
So I was so clinically declined when I went into the hospital. I was wheelchaired in there. I had the sticker on my door or the magnet said I was a fall hazard. I was in real bad shape. I mean, I looked like I was, my days were about to end. But as I went through the process and I was in there, I started to, walk around and everything. But after, I ended up walking out of there, and I still kind of felt really crummy, but I had gotten through the whole process, and my first set of scans was at 6 weeks, and there was no way to really know whether it worked or not. But I felt like such utter in poor health going in there that feeling a little bit better when I left was kind of a sign of like, well, I'm feeling better than I am. There's no way to really tell until my first set of scans. When I did my first set of scans, I had a 50 to 60% reduction in everything. It wasn't until 9 months that my scans were showing a full, complete metabolic response. My labs continued to improve, my scans continued to improve, and I was just I eventually got my appetite back.
And what about the pain? What about the pain? When did the pain kind of subside?
That was one of those things where it was really kind of hard to gauge, because all my initial pains were caused by all the tumors that were pressing up against everything, but just like the toll your body takes from doing all these multiple different treatments, it just collateral damage that I didn't really necessarily know about. The different types of I don't know if it's like arthritis or this and that, but there's just chronic pain, that I've been slowly trying to get rid of over the past few years. But I just knew a significant difference within a few months from what it was. But it's just my pain shifted from what like was the initial cancer pain that was causing me to hurt to like this like full-time body ache pain, that's now it's not from the cancer, but it's from all the toll from doing all the prior stuff. I mean, right before I went into TIL, I had a brain tumor that popped up on my scans that kicked me out of the trial. And, I had to treat that brain tumor and prove, that it was stable in reduction prior to, getting back into the trial. And there was a really short window to do that. And so, I had so many of these moments that were just back to back to it was like, I don't know where I'm going to get the energy from. And it's like, you ever hear about people who have this like a adrenaline bolt where they can like lift a car, And so I felt like through, everything leading up to that till process was so intense that by the time I got to the hospital and was like admitted, you know what I mean? It was like this weight off my shoulders. And I I couldn't tell if it was working. I couldn't tell if the pain was gone, but all that other stuff that I had to do to get there was
Hmm.
such a relief that in itself just felt better. So,
Yeah,
you'd be,
that's a real issue that metastatic patients are facing, is if they have brain mets, they don't get in clinical trials. But most of that is because a lot of the drugs don't cross the blood-brain barrier. But so obviously the TILs does, right? The TILs.
oh, I did, I had to do SRS radiation, which I ended up doing 5 sessions in 4 days. And because on the fourth day they gave me a double dose, and so that when I actually went to scan, the spot, which was 1 centimeter, was 1.2, but they were able to tell it was inflammation, and so that it's that I think was able. It just said it had to be treated. It didn't say the specifics on how much it had to be in reduction, but it had stable or in reduction. And so,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, I think between a combo of doing that plus doing the till, it worked. It did cross it, because I've met other patients. In fact, this last February at the Melanoma Research Alliance patient forum scientific retreat, I was on a panel with another patient. Her name's Colleen, and she was the first patient at MD Anderson in a trial that was able to prove that immunotherapy was able to cross the blood-brain barrier and then work.
Mhm.
And she was, she was the walk and proof of that. And so it there's more studies that need to be done on it, but just in overall, like, it doesn't tend to be as effective as I mean, it's a I don't know why it works or doesn't work, but you're 100% right on that. Without having it treated first, yeah, like, looks clear. But
Mhm.
if you've had it treated at least, with something, then at least that's kind of can get it going. But it's like, imagine getting to 99 out of 100, and then you have that one little one left, and then it's like,
Mhm.
nope, sorry. And I'm like, what do you mean? I got this
Yeah.
far and you're telling me no? Oh no, not happening.
No, I know. So you're one of those people that I like to call a beacon of hope, because you're telling your story, which is so important to hear. And so often, I think, as cancer patients, we look at Dr. Google and we believe statistics. And I don't know. I think, with all due respect, I know you probably, I had a friend who had lung cancer for 10 years, and she finally got to the point and said, I can't take this. I can't take another therapy. Did you ever feel that way? Did you ever feel, I know you were so young. I mean,
Well,
you're,
it was I had this thought from the moment of diagnosis that because it was such a grim prognosis, and that it was I was everything about it was so extremely rare. I literally felt like I was like in a living type of weird night terror movie, because it just
mm,
didn't seem real. And so it was like, well, if it was possible for me to check all these boxes amongst like the rare list of being half the age, and, but when I looked at all the, if it was 14% to make it 5 years, and the average age was 70 and I was 36, and, um, the specific subtype I had was only about 200, 25% of that subtype, which makes it 250 people. That meant that there was about 35 people total per year that had my diagnosis, no matter what age, that actually lived past 5 years. And so
mm,
I was like, if it's that rare for me to have it, then I also have that same rare chance for me to beat it.
mhm.
And
Right.
so that I never let that really get out of my head, and I never let any bit of negative like thought process get into my head, because I knew if I just gave it just a little
Right.
bitty millimeter, then it would just become a mile. And
Hmm.
so I also had this thought process that if I'm going out swinging, and I'm not doing it sober. So, give me the pain meds and
Yeah.
let's go. And I
Yeah.
was like, I remember telling him, I'm like, give me everything you got. I want to be extremely aggressive. You know, I, you know, when it comes down to it, you know, the doctors work for you, you pay them. And so I was willing to go anywhere, do anything, see
Mm-hmm.
anybody. I wasn't, you know, worried about their egos and this and that, and the rules. And, you know, like all the rules go out the window as soon as it's like, you know, you see that sand in your hourglass going down. You're like, what are you willing to do to live?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just, you know, I wanted to do so much more. And it was like all the things that I'd never done that I wanted to do. Like you envision them like my whole life up to that point. I was always like, oh, you know, my finances and my credit score and I, you know, this and this and that. And, you know, after that, you know, it was just kind of like, I, um, I was like, you know what, that's not the most important thing anymore. And, you know, at time you can't put a price on it. And
Mm-hmm.
what you do with it means so much. But I was so, you know, distraught by how, you know, there was there was like no information out there about my disease. I couldn't find, you know, like plenty of full testimonials like you can in other spots. And it was like it gave me something to kind of live for, to be like, okay, well, if I do live through this and when I do live from this, I will have such an incredible rare story that one, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I can pay it forward, you know, just by telling it. You don't know how I'm going to do it, but that is way more than what I had, you know, than when I was going through it. And so the that was just kind of like the value in that rarity. You know, I've always looked at it like the reason, but because, you know, it's like in Dumb and Dumber when Homeboy's asking, like, you know, what are the chances he's going to be able to date the main character? And she, you know, eventually says 1 in a million, but he just gets all geeky happy because he's like, so you're saying there's a chance? You know, like I have one of my best friends, you know, God rest his soul, you know, he's not here anymore, but we used to always laugh about that, but it was like, you know, my buddy Nick, and it was like, if there's a chance, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, somebody's got to be that chance, and why couldn't it be me? And you know, that's what I clung on to. And for the, you know, the next people being diagnosed, it's, you know,
Mm-hmm.
starting a website just costs, you know, whatever it is to start the website, but telling your story, you know, like, and just being able to donate your time, like that didn't
Mm-hmm.
cost you anything, but you know, just you're wanting to do it, you know. So um
Well, I would
I,
call advocacy as my gift I got from cancer because I feel like it has totally changed my life. Number one, I mean, I was a fifth grade teacher. I don't ever think I would have had the courage to speak on a panel like I've done, like you said, you've done. And but but the thing is, it's so important that you tell your story because other people, I always tell the same thing you just said. If someone has a cancer and they say they almost have a 5% success rate, I said, who says you can't be that 5%? You
exactly.
know, right? Like,
100%.
don't look at it as 95%. Those 95% are not you, you know,
Yeah.
and the thing that I wrestle with, I guess my residual, and I didn't go through anything compared to what you went through, is, and it's just finally being addressed, is you're not the same person you were before cancer. And the tough thing is the psychological damage or collateral damage psychologically. I don't want to say psychological damage because I don't think that's a good term, but like you accepting the fact that happened to you, it was a traumatic, I call it PTSD of
Oh
cancer.
no, yeah. It's
Yeah,
still, yeah,
yeah.
100%.
Because I mean, you're NED right now, we call notice of disease, and so am I. But I'm sure there's not a day that goes by where if you wake up with your headache, you're like, oh my God, you know, this probably isn't a headache, you know?
Yeah. The
So,
littlest thing, like, will, you know, can freak me out. You know, I just came off of my consent for my clinical trial in August, and I was going, you know, minimum every, you know, 3 months or 4 times a year to scan. And now that I'm off of my, you know, consent, it's, you know, it's just up to me and, you know, the doctors figure out how often I, you know, to scan and stuff. And so the idea of not going as often as I was, that's what gives me anxiety, you know, like like when I was going all the time, and even in between, if there was something that like showed up as like a blimp on the imaging, what they call artifacts, and I even had some delayed scar tissue, that has shown up and gone away and everything. I would go in every 6 weeks and do extra scans. I had no problem doing that. Like it's kind of therapeutic. But what I've also found is that in the past 5 years or so that it was so frustrating to go to a therapist and pay them like the 150 $200 an hour to give them like some free education. And
Mm-hmm.
I was told this before by many important people, but of course they'll just sit there and take your money.
Right. And listen.
Who won't? I mean, it's like, I mean, I totally get it, but I wanted the peer connect. I wanted to be able to share my story, to where it mattered and it made a difference and an impact. And the rarity of it has been the most therapeutic thing, is to get involved and engaged everywhere I can. Like, I mean, like how I met you. I mean, um, it's if I didn't know about the clinical trial, for the treatment that actually did work, and it's a one-time treatment, until all the other options had ran out, and the place I was at didn't have it as an option anymore. And so, but the thing is I qualified to do it 9 months before I did it, and it's like that whole ethics in the oncology world of, wherever they're at, like I get it now, I guess, because I've seen like how, the business side of it all is like, like as a business, I'm not in business of giving away my business. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I
Yeah,
try not
that's
to be negative or cynical about it, but what my whole thing and my mission statement and everything is I do is, I don't, when the cancer I had, and it's, solid tumors, breast cancer, lung cancer, melanoma, when 90% of all cancer is solid tumors, I just want, populace, whenever they hear that word, that, when it goes off, no matter when or where, not think what I used to think was like, oh, got to get it cut out, get some chemo and some radiation or what, what I mean? Like I ran into someone not long ago, and the word cancer came up, and the first thing they go is they say, "Oh, chemo, huh?" And I about just
mm-hmm.
wanted to explode. And I was like, "No, no, 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 no." First thing
Mm.
I want to do by telling my story is, somebody, they'll hear the word cancer, they'll remember me telling my story, but they'll think, one, clinical trials.
Right.
Need to ask about clinical trials. Like, unless you ask, they're not always going to tell you not just what they have at what they're at, but what's out there, period. But I mean, it could be at another location, organization,
Mm.
state, but that in these advanced cell therapies, these are novel treatments by mid-sized companies. They don't have the advertising and marketing, like they're a lot of the survivors aren't out there necessarily telling their story like I am, but I'm trying to encourage them to, because instead of watching like the evening news, and then all you see a commercial for something, and I'm just sitting there looking at it, I'm like, well, that's the exact treatment that gave me all my hardcore side effects. I mean, I mean,
Yeah.
I advocate to do clinical trials and these cell therapies first. And if it doesn't work, then you still have all these other options. But if you do all those other options first and then a clinical
Yeah.
trial, you might not be able to get into it. You might not qualify, but
Well,
it's
the,
just
the important
knowing.
message here, though, is that this is the problem, because local oncology offices don't have the time or the resources. And I say there needs to be one person, whether it be a medical student or somebody who's going to volunteer their time in each practice, to say, I'm going to keep up on the latest technology. And in small areas, rural areas, they don't, unless you go out and look for yourself.
Yeah,
You
you're
owe it to
right.
yourself to do your own research. Again, we keep saying the same words: be your own best advocate, because
100%.
it's not that they're not trying to help you. They don't have time to do
Yeah.
it. And the other thing, you brought up a really big point that I just wanted to talk about as well, is when you're going through your treatment. I had a whole year of treatment and surgery and stuff like that. I didn't have chemo, so my heart goes out to you. I did have adjuvant therapy. But it's like, it's almost like someone's walking you through, like you've got a guardian angel, your nurse practitioner or your whatever, you have the support of your medical team. And then when all that's over and you pass the 3 month check and the 6 month check and the 1 year check, and they say, okay, you're good now, go live your life. And you're like, I have no idea how, but your friends and family think, oh, you're done now. You should just be done. Like that's it. But you're never done.
Yeah, you're 100%. It's never over.
No,
It's never over.
it's and that's the thing that we don't really give enough support to. And also we don't give enough. Thank goodness we have these advocacy groups. And thank goodness, like the best thing to do is go to a conference. Go
Yeah.
to a conference with people that have had your disease and talk to them. And the first thing I did when I was actually diagnosed, I started right when I was having my mastectomies. I bought every single book I could find online from a breast cancer patient that had lived. And I read every single book and I highlighted everything they did, changed my diet, changed my lifestyle. Um, and now I'm getting a little bit too comfortable, I think, now that I've been, but it's like, yeah, you like, I want to live. I want to, I'll do anything. I'll do anything. And like you said, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to go out fighting. I'm going to go
Yeah.
out, on my terms, or not really my terms, but yeah. So how are you doing now? You seem amazing. You just
Uh,
seem,
so I describe myself as a work in progress. So almost, when anybody ever asks, I'm always thinking like, well, how much time do you really have, and do you really want to know? So I kind of leave it open ended, like,
Mhm.
do you really want to know? I mean, I did my semi-annual skin check earlier this week, and my dermatologist, like many of my other doctors, have become kind of close friends, and they're more like, kind of therapist in a sense. But I tell them, I'm like, man, there's some days where I feel like all is good, like the stimulus I get from connecting with other advocates, that sense of community, because it's better therapy than anything. But there's a lot of days where, like, I don't necessarily have any kind of interaction, like I might not go anywhere, I might not do anything, I might not talk to anybody. And so, I'm kind of this like roller coaster of, depression and anxiety and PTSD, like,
Mhm.
that I never thought I would necessarily going to be. But I mean, the indirect, like, financial toxicity is like, caused me to default on 4 out of my 5 credit cards. And those went to collections, and now I'm being sued by those collectors, and stuff. And I had this idea, to do what I'm doing, but then to try to figure out how to make an income out of it, and I
Mhm.
never took business classes and stuff like that, and sales and marketing and stuff. And so it's a constant work in progress of, figuring it out and stuff. But I'm still ecstatic that, I'm here, and, I'm able to, still connect and stuff. I mean, the sense of community, like I said, is so important to me in what I do, that, like, it doesn't matter what the physical or financial cost, or whatever. Like, it's too important for me to not do it. And so it just depends on, like, what day, like, you talk to me on. I very proudly, wear all my bracelets everywhere I go. It sparked up a
Mhm.
lot of conversations.
Mhm.
My eyelashes spark up a lot of conversations, because they're white due to all the treatment I did. But I yeah, I guess it just depends on the day. Like, I'm still trying to figure out my limits on my physical activity, like that. Last week when I met you, I flew out to DC from Dallas on that Monday. We had dinner, and the next day, I had the conference. That was all great. But the next morning, I had to be up at 4 a.m. And then out at the hotel by like 5:15 to get my way to the airport, because then I had to fly from there to Denver to go do my last set of scans and everything for the year. And then that just became an extremely long day, and then the next day flew home. But that whole week in itself, it's just by the time I got home, like my batteries are kind of drained. And so it's still this kind of trial and error of figuring out like how much charge I have in my batteries before they go dead, and how to listen to my body. I completely changed up all of my eating habits and health habits, like you're talking about. A lot more fruits and vegetables. I don't eat anything processed or frozen. I just healthier diet. I try to stay active as I can without like injuring myself. Unfortunately I have avian necrosis on both of my hips. Long-term side effect from all the prednisone I took in 2019 when I was having to fight the colitis from the immunotherapy. So kind of comes and goes a little bit. I was supposed to have a surgery for that earlier this year. I had to cancel. From what I'm described as, it's like an eggshell to where it collapses at any moment, but it's deteriorating from the inside out. So the pains and stuff come and go. The emotions, they come and go. But I just, from my scans last week, still clean and clear. All of my tumors and everything that I had, the incredible amount I had of them, they when I was confirmed to have a complete metabolic response, the whatever was detectable that was left, they were able to tell for sure that it was calcified and necrotic, like less than, maybe like a centimeter. And there's like 3 in my liver, 1 in the neoplasm near my kidney, 1 in my pelvic range. I mean, there's a handful of them that they were monitoring, but those are still like shrinking, but they're 100% proven to be necrotic and calcified. So I'm still NED. I could always get a new cancer or have a new kind of disease. I mean, that could always happen. I mean, my crystal ball only works so well.
Let's not go there.
And so I'm not even going there, but
pills in your body now, you're good. But that's upsetting about this situation with advocacy is that we don't get paid. People think we do. I get a small stipend for being on a clinical trial, but I use every single penny of that to do my advocacy work. And companies take advantage of us, and that's where we need to advocate for change. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that I wrote a book too about my journey. And to me, while we're giving people advice, keeping a journal was so therapeutic for me, because on the days when I got really down after I was all done with my treatment, I go back and read a chapter from my book and say, hey, look where I was then. Like, I'm so much better now. It's like, because it's like COVID. I wish I'd kept a journal during COVID. You don't remember what it was like. Sometimes I think you don't want to remember, but the things that you overcame, you do. And like your book, I think we need a petition to get you into making a Lifetime movie. This would make an amazing Lifetime movie, and you could get the credits from that to get out of your financial situation. Find the right person. So if you're out there and you work for Lifetime, here's your opportunity right here, because I think would make it amazing. This is kind of like the Herceptin story. We talked about that, I think, last week. Yeah, this is like, you're like 1 in a million, because
it's so crazy you bring up, Lifetime movie out of that, because my cousin, who is about 10 years younger than me, lives in Southern California. And I guess, he's working his way, into the acting business, but he's also a personal trainer and he's got some different IMBD credits. And from what I need to call him or text him, but from what I understand, like, he's filming a Lifetime movie. Like, he got a role. And I always told him, I was like, if there's ever a movie made about me, I want you to play me, because he actually looks like I used to look like. Like, phone doesn't even recognize me. Like, I used to have dark brown hair. I had real tan skin, and all the pictures in everything post 2020, it just says other person. Like, but everything before says, Chris White. I love that idea. Like, when I read Emily Whitehead's book, her and her parents had wrote together, Praying for Emily. And she was the first CAR T patient to receive T as a pediatric. She this was in 2012, and then that eventually got approved and everything. But there's a documentary out there called Medicine for Miracles, and it's on, I want to say you can get it on Amazon, Apple TV. But it's got her and her parents and Dr. Carl June and Bruce Levine and them figuring out how CAR T actually works. And CAR T, is one of the first cell therapies to get approved. And documentary, at the end of it, I believe, in some other interviews, it talks about, she's able to go meet Steven Spielberg and do some other things. Got some in filmmaking, and it's kind of had this idea in the back of my head of like, how I should learn how to be like Sylvester Stallone and learn how to write a script.
Yeah.
Her storyline and mine, be able to put it all together, but I was literally the very last patient in my clinical trial to be dosed out of the 153. And I was, one of the 12 subsets of that trial, and then one of the 6 responders. But since they've been working on this since the 80s, it's now like the first approved therapy for solid tumors. And there's other clinical trials now that they're working on for, I think the next one up from Iovance is lung cancer. They got cervical cancer, but the NIH right now, they have clinical trials for TIL therapy for breast cancer. There's probably 80 some odd different companies right now that are working on one version or another of TIL.
So back up a minute. So out of 150 people, is that right, in your trial?
153 that were dosed.
There were only 6 that had a complete metabolic response?
No, so there's 153 total. Out of that 153, only 12 had my subtype. There was there was all of them were cutaneous, like skin cancer, melanoma.
Okay.
But out of that 153, there was 12 mucosal melanoma, and there was 10 acral melanoma. Like Bob Marley's type of melanoma under your fingernail. Yeah. And so there was there was 22 out of that 153 that were not cutaneous, but that had a rare subtype like myself. The total efficacy from the whole thing was about 30 some odd percent, either a CMR or a CR. And so the difference is, though, I'm a CMR, which is considered a partial response. And because a complete response would be that there is literally nothing that shows up on a scan. But since I have these little itty bitty necrotic calcifications that show up, I'm considered a partial response, which is why they gave me a complete metabolic response. But out of the entire trial, it was a 30 some odd percent efficacy of those with either a partial response or a complete response. But for the patient, there was a 50 some odd percent efficacy of those that did achieve some benefit from it, that prolonged, or they were able to be stable for long enough, and then they either dropped out of the trial for getting their data followed for one reason or another. But that's why they're doing that confirmatory trial right now, to show it as a first option, not as a second or later, but to prove of the benefit from it. Because just like myself, I mean, you probably can attest to this too, but as a patient, I was willing to go anywhere, do anything to stay alive. And that's what every patient, I feel, they at least want the chance to try. And so, but they have to at least know that it's out there. And that's I mean, like almost more than half the battle. I would love to. I'm going to start figuring out how to write a script now that you bring this up. That's my next project.
There you go. There you go. Well, we could talk. We'll have to talk again, but we kind of have to end this video, or I'm going to probably have to make 2 videos out of this, or people like to watch things in smaller, especially when it goes into a podcast, but I'll definitely make it so that it will. But just say a big thank you, and you inspire me. And everybody, remember the book. It's Killing Cancer with TILs by Chris White. And we're going to look for this Lifetime movie. And if you know anybody, you can contact us. At the end of this video, I will put all of Chris's contact information so that you could reach out to him. Let's hope, because this is a great story, and we could pay you back for all you're doing in the advocacy community. So I'd say a really big thank you, and thank you for your time today.
Judy, you're an angel. I thank you. It's phenomenal meeting you, connecting with you. Like I said, the sense of community from all this, it means everything to me. And so God bless you. And thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I really feel like everyone I've met, I say in my book over and over, is a God incidence. Because it always seems like, to be honest, I've been going through lately, like, should I back off from this a little bit? I've got 5 grandchildren. My husband's going to be 80 next year. And then you get a shot in the arm, you go to Washington and you meet incredible people like you. And then this is too important. As long as I have, and my mother always reminds me of that too, as long as I've got a voice to speak, I'll try whatever I can. And 5 little grandkids that I want to make the world a better place for. So thank you for making the world a better place. And we're going to end the recording, but then we can stay on and chat. So thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining us today, and please visit Chris's website as well as my website, www.sistersforprevention.com. Please note the links to Chris's other videos. Please note the link to the other videos in this series on this. Please note the links to the other videos in this series. And thank you for watching. If you enjoyed today's content, please click subscribe to my channel. It's free and you'll be notified of any new programs that we publish. Thank you so much and have a great day.